I'm going to have my assistant Sarah pass out a form. I'd like you to take a moment and think about it, because what we're going to talk about today, which is a very interesting concept for me, does anybody want to just be a little bold and give what the definition of chaos is?
My life.
Perfect. What's chaos about your life? What's your first name? Kristen. Why would you say your life is chaos?
Baby, school, family.
Okay, so she's saying she's got a new grandchild, she's in school, all the things that go along with school, her family, what else? Bills. So what is it about that that's chaotic?
Just trying to hold everything together and make it work.
Okay, so up here on the slide I have panic and calm. So how would you describe your life right now in regards to those two words?
I'd say at times I panic just to make sure everything's done, but I'm usually a pretty calm person, so I'm kind of in the middle of the two. I mean, there are times, oh my God, I'm panicked,
Okay.
but there's times that I can deal with it and go on.
Anybody else want to take a stab at chaos?
Lack of order.
Perfect. That's a definition from, did you pull that from the dictionary? You knew that.
I knew that.
Perfect. Lack of order. What's your first name?
Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron. Anybody else? What else does chaos mean?
Take Aaron's comment one step further and say it's a lack of order in the mind.
Okay.
I think that you can have physical lack of order around you, but still not feel like you're in panic or in chaos. But when it gets inside your head,
How many of you love his accent? Where's your accent from?
New Zealand.
New Zealand. Love New Zealand. I've been to Queenstown all the way up to Auckland. Beautiful place. Actually got to dive at Jacques Cousteau's, some of his famous dive that he says it's one of the top 10. Anybody else want to take a quick stab at chaos? Lack of control. So let's talk about that for a second. What was your first name?
Amy.
Thanks, Amy. Let's talk about in business. How many in here are right now in the sales department or the sales kind of part of the business school? By a raise of hands, just so I can see. Okay? How many of you are going to the professional accounting, CPA, finance, that area in business right now by a raise of hands? Great. How many are you just in the business management part of the program? Eugene, what am I missing besides those three? Okay, marketing. How many are here for marketing? Okay. The reason I started studying the brain in 1999 was I got diagnosed with ADHD. How many in here have been diagnosed sometime in their life with ADD or ADHD by a raise of hands? You guys are brilliant. You're awesome. When I grew up known as a problem child. My nickname growing up was the fastest mouth in the West. My parents used to tell people that. People used to say that. And the thing for me is I had a ton of energy. In third grade, my teacher, when I would come to school, I would show up in the classroom. She would have me get a desk, drag it out in the hall, and for the whole day of school, I would sit out in the hall. And I did that for 3 weeks before my parents found out. So parents come to school. I still remember my principal. Her name was Mrs. Ward. My parents say, "What's going on?" They bring the teacher in. And so what do you think the teacher told my parents?
You're out of control.
I was out of control. Out of control in the sense that I couldn't focus. And also, I was talking to the kids around me, or she would be doing something, I'd be staring out the window. And so no one understood what was going on in my brain. Now, if you load me up with sugar with an ADHD brain, what do you think happens? I calm down. Oh, no. I'm totally, yep. What's your name? Chris is over there going, this guy's all over the place. So when you're the fastest mouth in the West and you get sugar, then you start talking like this and you want to go, and I got to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go play, and we're going to do this, and, drive people nuts. So when I got diagnosed with ADHD brain, a lot of things fell in place for me. I'm a serial entrepreneur. And so the question is, why am I a serial entrepreneur? Since I went to school, and when I was in college, I just started my very first big business, and it grew to 110 stores in 28 states. Entrepreneur of the Year in that particular segment. And what was interesting about that is that was my first one, and today I'm working on my 17th company. So why am I a serial entrepreneur? And what does this have to do about having an ADHD brain? And more importantly, what did I learn in 1999 to today that makes me say, if you've got ADHD, you're awesome? Because most of society says, you are not awesome and we can't deal with you. Anybody want to take a stab at that long question? What was that? I embraced it. What did I embrace?
That you can do, or you're able to complete things fast and able to kind of focus on several different things at once.
Exactly. So an ADHD brain has some challenges to deal with, but it has some really good things. And the thing about it is we need ADHD brains in our society. Just like we need brains that are very methodical, very calm, just, can do one thing at a time. When I got put on in 1999, they convinced me to try a drug called Ritalin. So here I am, an adult. They say, we want to put you on Ritalin. So I try Ritalin. It was the most amazing experience. I went to work. I was sitting in my booth, and I could take this object. And I know there's something that this object does. And so I could stare. I could look at this object and focus on this. And my ADHD brain is seeing and hearing there's people moving over there. There's noise. There's some static in the background. So my brain's seeing all this stuff that's going on. But for that, on that Ritalin, for that moment, I could focus on that. It was the coolest thing. It was unbelievable. Unfortunately, had a really bad reaction to the drug. When I got home, I jumped on my bike, rode 10 miles as fast as I could because I had a beehive in my body. And I was thinking if I could ride as hard as fast as I could for 10 miles, it'd be okay. And so I got off my bike. At the end of that, it was worse, called the doctor, explained what happened. She says, stop taking that drug. That's really bad. And then what happened is I said, I'm done. I got to figure this out naturally. I was starting to study a thing about the brain that's called the toxic brain. Started that research, started going down that path, and they convinced me, let's do one more drug. I said, I don't like drugs. They said, but my goal when I started this whole process was, one of the things about an ADHD brain is you're very impulsive. Anybody, by a raise of hands, anybody that's ADHD or ADD, would you agree that sometimes some of the behavior you have is you're impulsive? Okay? It can be a bad thing sometimes. Okay? Because there can be consequences that come from being impulsive that are a challenge. So they said, you got to try one more drug. You said you wanted to change some behavior. Remember this word because I'm going to talk about behavior a lot. And every one of you, whether you're in marketing, sales, business management, you become a CFO, whatever you do in your business career, you're always going to become down to how do you change behavior. Business is a series of behaviors that are either going to lead you to calm, profits, or chaos, out of control, losing money, getting ready to go out of business. So they said, we'd like you to try a drug called Depakote. I don't want to do a drug. You want to try this drug. Got on the drug. for 3 months, was way more focused. I wasn't doing bizarre things. But what do you think happened at the end of 3 months? What did people start saying to me? Yeah, what happened? People start saying, you have no personality. What was more important is I lost my creative ability. So I went cold turkey, which you're not supposed to do, and then I started embracing this ADHD and then learning some coping skills with that impulsiveness. But in my business career, from the very first business I created, they used to if they wanted something done, they would give it to me. I would figure out, get it done. Give you a great story. Eugene was talking about my wife. She's been, in 2003, she was the entrepreneur of the state of Utah. Started a company in 1994 called Occurrence Teleservices. It was unique. We had, when we sold the company in 2007, we had 700 employees taking inbound calls. And so we had a call center, but 80% of all of our workers worked from home. So all these calls would come in all over the United States or internationally, and we'd route those calls out to the home. We'd pop a script on their computer. They'd read the script and get the information, and we sold Body by Jake products or real estate investing, and we took all these calls. So my wife asked me to join her in 2002. I said, no, I don't want to do that. I've been successful. I was with Quest Communications. I was responsible for $700 million in business for them. And she said to me, honey, look, we have the most to gain and lose with this business. I need your help. I said, dear, I report to you at home. I don't want to report to you at work also. So we kind of worked through that, and I joined. Give you a perfect example. We were standing in the call center, and we had a problem. Problem was, we couldn't get enough people in the way the booths were done. And in a call center, you have all this wiring that goes in the booth, so you can hook up the telephone, you can hook up the Ethernet cable for the internet for the computer, and you had all this stuff, very heavy equipment. We're sitting there talking. At 3 o'clock in the morning, my wife calls and says, where are you? I said, I just got done. I just completely took the call center apart, put all the booths back together, did all the wiring, got it all set up, got all this done. And my wife goes, oh my gosh, I was just thinking about it. I didn't tell you to do it. I didn't give you permission to do it. But how does my brain work? Okay, my partners have always called me throughout my business career Mr. Instant. So people have to learn, David, this is just something we're thinking about it. I don't want you to execute, implement, design. I don't want you to do anything. Let's just think about this. And then when we're ready, I'll tell you to go, and I will get it done. So I had Sarah pass a paper out to you. And on this paper is what I have designed is a process that if you follow this in your relationships, in your health, your business career, whatever you're doing, when you are struggling, the first step is what's really the problem. I'm passionate about solving problems. That's why I've been successful in my business career. That's why I've been successful on most anything, is I'm like, okay, here's what's going on. Here's what we'd like to have happen. And here are the action steps. Just as a side note here, all the way through school, I failed. High school, I graduated with a 2.85, got into a major university, and graduated with a 3.83 GPA. So what happened between high school and college? I learned one little simple thing about my brain. My brain has to sit on the very front row. And the reason I had to do that, my problem was I couldn't focus. I wasn't hearing everything. So if I sat in the middle or in the back with an ADHD brain, I was seeing everybody's head bob, talk, pins drop, paper. I was so distracted, and I learned to solve that problem, sit on the front row, and guess what? Nothing bugged me. I could focus, wasn't distracted, and was able to be very successful in school. So the key in life is about figuring out what's the problem. Why couldn't I get good grades? I came up with a solution. I did it for a period of time. The solution proved out. I got better grades. Let's talk about that with business and what you guys are all trying to accomplish here at school. For the last 10 years, I've been building a company called Ideal Shape, and my focus has been helping people get to their ideal body shape. In our country right now, 95% of people that go on a diet fail. If they lose weight, they fail to keep the weight off, and they typically put on 2 to 5 more pounds. And they repeat that cycle. It's called yo-yo dieting. So they'll go on a diet, lose some weight, put the weight back on more, lose the weight, put it back on. And so my thing, when I started researching and studying the brain, I also started researching and finding out what goes on in the brain that causes people to lose weight or gain weight. What is that? What was it? Okay, that's an ingredient of it. By a raise of hands, I want to see if you agree with this statement or not. So raise your hands yes if you agree with the statement. Weight loss or getting fit begins and ends in the mind. Okay, I'm glad the majority of you understand that. Let me tell you about some things about the brain, and you'll think about your relationships, think about if you're not being successful in school, think if you're not being successful in changing your body shape, think about if you're not getting healthy. And I want you to think about this for a second. There's something that goes on in the brain. There's 2 brains. There's the conscious brain, which the scientists, neuroscientists say the conscious brain represents 12 to 20%, depending on the expert, of our brain. So right now, you're having conscious thoughts. Whether you're listening to me or not, you're having these conscious thoughts. There's a gentleman right here that's scratching his left shoulder. And while he's scratching his left shoulder, he's not thinking about that because he's listening to me. He smiled as soon as I said that because he's engaged, he's listening to me. But while he was scratching his shoulder, were you thinking that you had a pin in your hand, you needed to be careful not to write on your shirt, you got to get the hand to go underneath the coat, you're starting to scratch? Did you think about that whole process? No, that was totally unconscious. There's another woman up here that's scratching her head, and she's on her iMac notebook, and she's, Busted. But she's listening to me. She's taking notes, but she's not thinking about scratching her head. She's looking at me right now. I just saw her eyelids blink twice. She didn't think about that. All of you are inflating your lungs. You know, you got blood that's pumping through your body. All this stuff is going on unconsciously, what we call in the subconscious mind. What the subconscious mind is hooked to is your central nervous system. Central nervous system is hooked to all your muscles, your organs, everything goes on. We make, on an average per day, 5,000 to 10,000 decisions a day. The conscious mind can't process all that. So majority of that's done in the conscious mind. I'll give you an example. When you get up in the morning and you're laying in bed and you sit up and you think, I got to go to the restroom, and your brain starts going, okay, I need to get breakfast, I need to get my books together for school, I need to do all of these things that you're thinking in your conscious mind, but as you're walking to the bathroom, you're not thinking about the stepping, all the things that you have to do, your heart beating, all that stuff that's going on. Here's the challenge with problems. Why do you think an athlete, I'm an amateur tennis player, pickleball player, I cycle, race. There's all these things that you learn, but let's just take a simple stroke in tennis. How many here have played tennis once, picked up a racket in their lifetime? How about ping pong? Okay, so I pretty much everybody covered here. If you take the stroke, ball's coming to you, there's a couple different ways you can hit the ball. As the ball's coming to you, you can hit it flat. So you just follow through, hit the ball flat, and it's going to go pretty much straight. If you're coming up on the ball and hit up on the ball, it creates a spin. As the ball spins, it will drop. Depending on how hard you hit the ball and the spin you put it on, it will go deeper before it spins down, or you hit it a lot of spin, it'll just barely go and drop right down. How long do you think it takes, if you're going to work on one particular spin and way to hit the ball, how long do you think it takes to get your brain and muscles to remember that movement?
30 days constantly doing it.
Right, multiple times, 30 days, and what happens?
It becomes a habit.
Perfect, becomes a habit. Here's the thing that we don't understand about our brains. It's why I'm here today, and it's why I'm so passionate about the brain and what we can do with our brains and what holds us back from being successful. The subconscious mind is trained to be in a state of homeostasis. Does anybody know what that big word means? What does homeostasis mean? We'll let you. You haven't answered yet.
It's the natural state that you are used to. It's repeating within your physical body.
Right? We could term that as a behavior or a habit. Would you, yes or no?
That's it. Yeah.
Or it's actually all the way down to the cell level. It's the state of a cell, how it works, everything, and it's constant, consistent when you get to that level. What happens when you try to move out of homeostasis?
There's a natural resistance because your body wants, whatever it is, that's a working state.
Right.
It wants to stay there.
So he said a really key word. It naturally causes resistance to change. Think about that for a second. Resistance to change. If I grew up where you actually in tennis, when I was your age, we actually just hit a straight shot. It was just, you just went through it straight. Now it's all about putting spin. And there's all these things you do on the ball. So when I started playing tennis, I got frustrated and I got angry because I wanted to hit this stroke, and I had a tennis coach I was paying a freaking $100 an hour to help me improve my tennis game so I could play in league. And I'd sit there and I'd go, this doesn't make sense. I know that I'm supposed to do this. I know that I'm stepping forward and my hips are turning and there's all this stuff going on and I'm going to come up and hit the ball. And that dang ball would not go where I wanted it to go. Why is that? Because you have to retrain that behavior. And the brain's job, once it's been trained in the first place, is to resist change. How many of you, by raise of hands, think that is bizarre? What's your name? Explain that. Put that in words, Ashley, why you think that's bizarre that the brain would do that.
Because our world is changing all the time, and it's changing upon us. You think you would eventually get used to it?
You never do, because the brain is designed to either be in panic, chaos, or in a state of being calm. And when you're in a state of being calm, that means you know exactly what's going to happen. So the problem is what is the undesired behavior? So in weight loss, One of the things that's so interesting when people go on a diet or do weight loss, businesses do the exact same thing. You can go just about in every single thing and see this concept. And what the concept is simply this. As a scientist, when you set up an experiment, to have the experiment, you want it to end either two ways. It's either going to end up with the desired outcome, or it's going to end up in chaos. So you have your base, and as a scientist, what you do is you add one change. If you add two changes and the experiment fails, do you know which of the two changes fails? No. So you've got to design the experiment for one change. So when people come to me, say, I'm not being successful losing weight, I'm not being successful in business, I'm not being successful in my relationships, I say, give me your list. What are you trying to do? So in dieting, people will go, I am trying to restrict my calories, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to take a detox, I'm going to restart reading books, I'm going to start running. And they give me 7 to 10 things that they're working on to lose weight. 95% of the people out there go on a weight loss program or diet program and fail. Do they know why they failed? They don't.
Sometimes they think they do.
Exactly. And then they say that all this stuff doesn't work. What I do with people, I get people to list the problem, what's the undesired behavior? Okay? Most people, 10, 30. We have thousands of people have lost 80, 100, 150 pounds on this concept and what we do. So you list what the undesired behavior is. And then the thing is what is the desired behavior? So in getting healthy, or if you want to change your body shape, now the company I own is Ideal Shape. What we do with people is we don't talk about weight. We talk about what's the size shirt, pants, or dress that would fit on your ideal body shape. It's a huge shift. So what's the size shirt, pants, dress that would fit on your ideal body shape? So the desired behavior is, for me, you may not believe it, but I used to not be able to see my feet. So if I look down right now, I couldn't see my belt in the past, and I couldn't see my feet. My behavior was, I want to be able to see my belt when I look down. I want to be able to see my feet. I want to go back to being a size 34 waist. And I want to be a size large shirt. That was my desired behavior. Now, if we're a scientist and we know the outcome is going to be a size 34 waist, what's a behavior I can change that will get me in that direction? And in the world we live today, it's do all of these things, but we fail, and then we fail to understand why we failed. So what I did is I researched 10 behaviors that cause people to not have their ideal body shape. 1, we don't drink enough water. 2, we eat too much sugar. 3, we deal with sabotage in our brain from our own thinking and from other people. We don't get enough exercise. I have 10 of these behaviors. What I've been able to do is I've been able to get people to pick one behavior. So, for example, weight loss is a very simple formula. Calories in, calories out. My size, my bone structure, my height, my activity, I burn 2,800 calories a day. I grew up, because of the generation, I grew up ingesting tremendous amounts of sugar. I grew up drinking a 6-pack or more a day of Coca-Cola. If you go to the convenience store right now and you buy your favorite beverage, Mountain Dew, Dr. Pepper, Coca-Cola, whatever, 44 ounces is 500 calories. 500 calories from 128 grams of sugar. I was consuming between 2,000 and 3,000 calories a day from the beverages that I drank before I even had one bite of food. Now, the other problem for me is that much sugar just totally blows up my brain, and there's a host of other things that happen. So all these 10 behaviors that I researched are behaviors that I actually figured out, did, and some of them take 28 days, and some take 2 years. I only drink water now. It took me 2 years. Most of the sugar, and I don't know how many are pre-diabetic or diabetic, one of the biggest challenges we all have today is we're becoming insulin resistant. The reason for that is that we have so much sugar, and what happens when you're insulin resistant, the body can't deal with all that glucose and fructose that goes into the bloodstream, and so what ends up happening is it puts it into the fat cells. So there's this whole thing that goes on. Well, I grew up for 45 years drinking Coca-Cola. What do you think my brain did as soon as I said, I'm not going to drink Coca-Cola anymore? There was a physical aspect, and there was a mental aspect, because I trained the subconscious, the inner mind, that that was normal. So just like I was talking about changing my tennis stroke, that took a long time to do, but I stuck at it, and now today I'm the same size and shape I was when I was in high school. And it's very easy for me to maintain that. Let me share one last thing. I'm going to open up in about 5 minutes to question and answers, and I'll bring this all together. The base, the foundation to be successful in life is sleep. Why would I say that? If you want to be successful at changing your body shape, you have to sleep 7 to 8 hours a night. Let me tell you all the science really quickly. When you sleep at night, you release 2 hormones. One's called ghrelin and one's called leptin. Ghrelin and leptin go into the bloodstream, and they affect our appetite. Lady I started working with, I wanted to lose 50 pounds. I immediately looked at her stomach. Looked at her eyes. I knew immediately people that are struggling build a lot of fat on their upper stomach. So people will build stomachs, but if you see a lot of fat on the upper stomach, that's the result of cortisol. Cortisol is our fight or flight hormone. So when you get scared or something happens, you get that instant energy, and you've heard of the woman who car wreck, her kids are trapped in the car, and she lifts the car out and gets her car up. Where does that energy, where does that power come from? And it's from the hormone cortisol. If you're releasing cortisol all the time because you can't deal with stress very well, and we live, as the woman up there, we live in a changing society, and we have all this stress, that's where it comes. And the body builds it there because it's the fastest place to get energy. If you're not sleeping at night, you're not getting the stress to go down, which will help take the cortisol down. So you have this crazy process that goes on, is that you're not releasing enough ghrelin and leptin, and what they do is they don't tell your appetite control center that it's satiated, and so you wake up the next day and you have this appetite all day, and the stress, and it just is this vicious cycle. So like this lady, she was getting 2 hours of sleep a night, and that was with Ambien. Took 5 months. She listened. I created a CD series. I'm a motivational brain trainer. I have her listen to the CD every night. She goes to sleep to it. And what I got her to understand is you trained your brain not to sleep 8 hours. You trained your brain to sleep 2 hours, and that was with Ambien. That's a brain training issue. Five months later, sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night. What do you think happened to her body shape when we got her sleeping in line? She's at her ideal body shape today. Just that one behavior. That's the foundation. So I get people to sleep, get them to take down their, but I do that 28 days, 2 months, 3 months, and then we pick another behavior. Because the experiment is, remember, one more time, the experiment is this. We talked about what's the problem, what's the desired behavior, what's the action step, and at the end of 28 days, we should be able to see a change. If we don't get the change that we want, then it's chaos. I wrote a book. I've written 3 books. I'm going to let you, if you're interested in this book that I wrote a book called Diet Chaos, putting forth this theory that if you want to change your body shape, you need to do it one behavior at a time. So if you text this number and put chaos in, you'll get my book for free. So it'll automatically come to your phone. If you have an iPhone or whatever, you'll get it. Go right in iBooks and you can start to read it. I would suggest that you read it because it will explain what you can do in business, relationships, your health, weight loss. It's a process of, if something's wrong, how do we fix it? And my thing is, I've been in companies that are going out of business, and they are trying to do anything and everything to survive, and guess what? They go out of business. Companies that focus on figure out the biggest problem that gives them the biggest gain and go solve it and work on that behavior will be successful. My whole career has been about teaching people sales, teaching people how to be motivated. Sales is the easiest thing to solve because it's a behavior. And if you do certain behaviors in sales, you will be at the top. You guys have been awesome. I could spend hours talking about what I'm so passionate about. I love business. I love helping people. I love solving problems. You guys are at the beginning of your careers. My first big, even though I've had 17 companies, I've worked for several big companies. So you can be an entrepreneur where you start your own companies, or you can be an, how do you say it, entrepreneur? I always say it wrong. It's an entrepreneur where you can be basically an entrepreneur inside a company. And my biggest job I ever got was because I had a college degree. And the college degree was not even in the business. And the sales manager, the vice president of sales, the only reason I got a shot was because I had the college degree. Even though I owned my own companies and had all these business experience, the only thing that got me the interview was the college degree. So complete your college degree. It will benefit you. And going forward, if you'll follow my formula, problem, solution, what's the action step, in any aspect of your life you can be successful. We've got about 8 minutes. I'm going to open it up for questions and answers. Don't be shy. You can tell I am conservative, quiet. Your name?
Pete,
Pete.
what's been your favorite company that you've started and why?
Pete said, what's my favorite company and why? The company I'm doing right now is my favorite company because I'm not trying to make money. All my other companies, I was trying to make money, and I've made wild amounts of money. But the funnest company for me right now is Ideal Shape because I'm changing people's lives. I'm getting people saying, you have saved my life. At the end of the day, we hired a company in Springville called Red. They're called Research Emotion Design. We're rebranding our company right now. They did this big, huge research project. Listen to this very carefully, because this is what will help you be successful. Whenever you sell anything, whether your business is retail or your business is accounting, whatever your business is, at the end, what you're trying to get to with somebody is the emotion. In our industry, what's the emotion someone feels when they get to their ideal shape? And we did internal research, then we went to what's called our love group. We got 10 of our customers that love us. They researched, interviewed them, and then they went to 150, I think we ended up with 162, something like that, where they went to potential customers. And then they come back and said, here's your benefits, this is your attributes, and it gets all the way to the end as what does the person feel, what's the emotion. When you get to that emotion and then you put that into marketing materials and everything you do, you will double and triple your sales. Because it gets to what's the emotion. Another question? Don't be shy.
Yeah, with your ideal shape business, you took on just through this whole presentation, you've been talking a lot about how to change behavior. I've had several experiences with weight loss. Some of them have been really successful, but what always dragged me back was how I thought. How do you change how you think? And, and this is going to be real personal, but I always see myself as a fat guy. And so even when I've lost weight, I still have this thought in my head that drags me back. And that's, for me, that's the behavior I'd like to change.
So we're going to end on that because it'll take me the 6 minutes or 5 minutes that I have left to answer that. What I do ultimately is I've created a brain training process. And what I do is I use psychology, neuroscience, neuroplasticity, meditation, hypnotherapy, storytelling, and what I do is I create a visualization. Research took 10 basketball players and had them shoot free throws with just being able to see it, counted that. Then they blindfolded them. And then they had people just sit and practice and not shoot. Research, what was interesting is that there was not a lot of difference between the people when they, well, the research would take more time, but let me just point out this. I have a favorite movie. Has anybody seen The Owls of, what is it? Kapul? So there's a scene in there where the owl is sitting on a branch, the younger brother of another owl. And this younger brother can fly without a problem, and the other one's struggling, and he says, why? And he says, I close my eyes and picture myself flying and landing on the branch. And he can execute that every single time. So, in your brain, it's been trained to think of yourself as a big guy. How do you change that? What I do is I create very powerful visualizations in my CDs. Or I teach you how to write a new script. And so I either let people listen to my recorded voice with music that's been designed to calm the brain, calm the mind, open up the subconscious mind to start building that visualization. I actually have a CD called Visualizing Your Ideal Shape. So what I do is I get you, I create this whole scene where you go into a department store, you go to a shirt rack, you go to a pants rack, you pick the size shirt, you pick the size pant that would fit on your ideal shape. I have you go in, I do this whole thing, and what you do for 30 days, 28 days is every night you go to sleep like that because you picked your size pant, your size shirt. By the end of 28 days or 2 months, that's the picture that you see, and guess what the brain does? The brain gets engaged in creating that visualization. One of the most powerful things that we do in our lives is visualize. Give you a perfect example. You're mad at somebody. They did something wrong. You go in your car, driving down the freeway, and you're just thinking, if I would have thought a little bit longer, next time I'm going to do this. And you picture this whole experience. All of a sudden, you notice you missed your exit. And you're like, I missed my exit. So I'm going to come to a couple key words here. The reason you missed your exit is you were hyper-focused. You were so focused on what you were seeing in your brain and how you would talk and what you would do, you missed your exit. So what I teach is 3 principles. I teach you how to become hyper-focused. And the key is now I plant a suggestion in your brain. It's called suggestibility. I get you to be hyper-suggestible. And when you become hyper-suggestible, now through the visualization, it's funny, people go, I have a fear of flying. Why do you have a fear of flying? I don't know, I'm just scared to fly. I'm not going to get on a plane. I work with them and say, you can get on a plane. It's not a big deal. This is why. And I start to plant the seed. And they all of a sudden they go, oh. So why won't they get on the plane? I'm going to end with this concept. Life is the challenges we have is our beliefs. He said, I believe I'm a big guy. There's this thing that goes on, belief, choice, outcome. And what I try to do to get people to do is to realize they have a choice. You don't think you have a choice. You think you're a big guy and always will be a big guy. But I'm telling you, you can have your ideal body shape. Now, is it going to be a size 34? You're way bigger. You got broader shoulders. You got bigger muscles than I have. You're taller than I am. But you can have a certain size pant and shirt that will fit. And the key is you got to visualize it first. And I do that by telling you the greatest word in the United States today is choice. I love this country. I love that we have freedom, and freedom means choice. Thank you.
David, we appreciate you speaking today with our class, and here's a token of our appreciation.
Thank
you
you.
again for coming.
It's a gold brick.